Powered by the Montana Television Network. Montana This Morning continues on Montana's news leader.
Will the markets shake off concerns over trade tariffs and tech stocks? I'm John Schumo in New York, and I'll have that story.
And 20 years ago, one of the most notorious serial bombers in U.S. history was caught in Montana. The story of capturing the Unabomber also.
Good morning. It is 6:30 here on your very, very chilly Tuesday. Ooh, wow. Now, yesterday's big down day on Wall Street is having ripple effects on the world markets today.
That's right. Skidding tech stocks and the fear of a U.S.-China trade war are headlining the downturn. CBS's John Schumo has more this morning from New York.
Asian markets were down slightly after Monday's big sell-off on Wall Street that saw the Dow drop 459 points and the Nasdaq plunge almost 3%. The tech sector is taking a fair share of the blame. The so-called FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, have seen their market value drop by more than $300 billion in the past 2 weeks.
It's the continued implosion of the FANG stocks, partly due to President Trump's tweets, partly due to what we've seen out of Facebook.
President Trump is being blamed by some for the downturn for publicly criticizing Amazon's business practices and sparking fears of a trade war with China. The U.S. recently announced new duties on aluminum and steel imports. China countered this week by slapping tariffs on more than 120 U.S. exports.
The old saying is the market can deal with bad news, but it just hates uncertainty. It hates the idea that we don't know what the final trade deal is going to be with China.
This week, the Trump administration is expected to unveil plans for additional tariffs on between $50 to $60 billion worth of Chinese goods. Beijing has promised to retaliate with new sanctions of its own. John Schumo, CBS News, New York.
Now, it turns out Amazon, one of the biggest drivers of the 2017 market rally, has taken among the biggest hits this week. It fell 5%. That wiped out more than $36 billion of market value. Wow.
5%.
Numbers Chet can't fathom.
Wow.
Matt has some numbers
I was going to say,
barely fathom either on the other
weather numbers aren't great either.
This morning, 0 out toward West Yellowstone early on. We're sitting at 2 in Belgrade, 22 in Butte. That cold air continues to sink through here. I do expect the daytime temperatures to warm up. We've had some winter weather advisories that have been allowed to expire for the Butte Blackfoot region this morning. What I'm tracking is actually some quieter weather, at least initially today. Now, by tomorrow, we're looking at rain and snow mixing. We'll likely see some snow on the ground before it's all said and done. By the time you head into the late part of the week, we'll, of course, talk more in depth about that coming up in just a few minutes.
14 degrees in Nome, Alaska. They're beating us. It's some local news for you now. The Bozeman City Commission has approved an alcohol exemption for restaurants in the downtown area. MTN's Medeiros Babb takes us to City Hall and tells us more.
The city approved an exemption that allows restaurants near churches and schools to sell beer and wine. Montana code states that businesses within 600 feet of a school or church cannot obtain an alcohol license. A vote was brought to City Commission to change that. The motion said that businesses in the B3 and B2M districts would be issued a permit to sell beer and wine as long as it sold food.
It requires all the facilities and support to actually function as a restaurant, not a restaurant light or some other version of that.
The B3 district runs along Main Street from Grand to Rouse, and the B2 includes North 7th and West on Main Street.
But I think it's important to look at small businesses and people that want to thrive in our community, local businesses. And we all know that it's very hard to make a go of a restaurant, or particularly a restaurant, but if you can't go in there and have something to drink.
The exemption also stated that restaurants cannot have any gambling. However, the city did strike the requirement from the motion that customers who ordered alcohol would have to order food as well. The city plans on discussing more alcohol exemptions in the future, depending on the success of this current ordinance. In Bozeman, Medeiros Babb, MTN News.
Now, Medeiros tells us 13 Bozeman restaurants qualify for this exemption.
In court headlines this morning, a man from Big Sky with 4 prior DUI convictions was arrested Sunday after crashing his car into a house And then trying to leave the scene with a blood alcohol level more than twice the legal limit. 26-year-old Michael Eves faces a felony DUI charge, along with charges for marijuana possession and driving with a revoked license. In Gallatin County Justice Court yesterday, the judge set Eves bail at $100,000. His preliminary hearing set for April 27th. Well, it was a week in 1996 that Montana was thrust into the national spotlight for being the hideout location for the infamous mail bomb terrorist that became known as the Unabomber. MTN reporters from around the state were working closely with the National Press Corps as we tried to keep up with the fast-breaking story.
It was a story that brought the nation's attention to this small, unassuming cabin in a remote area of Montana. The Treasure State didn't ask for it, but suddenly all eyes were on Lincoln, Montana. After a 17-year search for the elusive terrorist that became known as the Unabomber, short for University and Airline Bomber, FBI agents finally closed in on their reclusive prey, Ted Kaczynski. The press coverage of Kaczynski's capture was amplified by the fact that the national media was already in the state. 320 miles away, the feds had an anti-government group holed up on a ranch near Jordan in what eventually became the 81-day Freeman standoff. But as soon as news broke that the FBI had closed in on the man they thought responsible for years of mail bomb attacks meant to further his anti-technology ideology, they pulled stake in Jordan and flocked to Lincoln. Those that knew him were caught off guard that this quiet, mild-mannered man was responsible for killing 3 people and injuring 24 more.
There's other people I would have thought were, you know, if they're going to pick somebody in Lincoln, Montana, I'd have thought not him. He's just too quiet and unassuming.
The events in Lincoln stunned people across the state and the nation, but University of Great Falls professor Ron Haverland says it makes perfect sense.
It all fits in place, of course. You know, he's anti-technological, he's anti-domination, he links the two together, the inhumaneness of technology. And where else would he go but to Lincoln, which is at the southern end of the continent's largest wilderness area.
Kaczynski pleaded guilty to his crimes nearly 2 years later in Sacramento. The entire cabin that served as home base for his deadly schemes, in fact, was packed up and shipped to California to serve as evidence in the trial. In Billings, Janelle Slade, MTN News.
I remember it like it was yesterday. Ted Kaczynski currently serving a life sentence. His cabin that once stood in Lincoln, well, the whole thing is on display at the Newseum, which is a museum dedicated to the news, and that's in the nation's capital.
In other news, in Mining City news, the Orphan Girl Children's Theater in Butte needs some help with some creative volunteers for an upcoming special event. The community theater is looking for writers, directors, actors, and other volunteers to help in its 1024 Play Festival, where participants plan to write and produce 10 short plays within a 24-hour period, all happening on April 13th and 14th. Writers will start on April 13th writing short one-act plays.
And then everybody else comes in the morning. They rehearse these brand new plays that literally the topics were pulled out of a hat that night, and then we stage them at the Covalite. So you're gonna be seeing 10 brand new 5 to 10 minute plays.
Now volunteers can sign up at the website orphangirl.org.
That sounds so fun.
10 plays,
that sounds
24
awesome.
hours.
That's awesome.
You have 2 days to execute the whole thing fully.
That's awesome.
Let's do it, Butte.
It's like Montana this morning.
Yeah. You never know what's going to happen.
For sure.
We're so happy to have you with us here on your very cold Tuesday morning. And I hope you've already had your breakfast, because coming up in this week's Montana Made Next, we head to the Bitterroot Valley, where a good old Montana beef burger, some yummy cheese, and a tasty beverage is our featured story.
But first, let's head to New York, check in with Gail King for a look at what's coming up at 7 on CBS this morning.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS this morning, the Trump administration's plan to roll back Obama-era greenhouse gas emissions and fuel economy standards. And as we mark the 50th anniversary of the death of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., prominent Americans from Colin Powell to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar share their memories and reflect on the progress toward achieving Dr. King's dream. We'll see you 7 o'clock on the dot.